Guys, welcome to Lair the Lycan, aka the HQ of Metal. Metal music to me is rebellion, expression, brutality, nonconformity, oneness, victory, and serenity. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the third album by ANATHEMA called Eternity. Now, this album was released in 1996 on the 11th of November. The personnel of this album is as follows: Vincent Kavanagh on vocals and guitars, John Douglas on drums, Duncan Peterson on bass, Patterson on bass, and Danny Kavanagh on guitars and keyboards. When he moves away from the death doom style of ANATHEMA's first two albums featuring heavy use of keyboards and mostly key vocals, it features a version of Roy Harper's track Hope, and it is the last album with drummer John Douglas before his return in the band in 1998. Now, the album does contain good lyrics, and they're very important in an atmospheric release like these, and the lyrics surely don't disappoint. Lyrics often create a thought-evoking atmosphere, and with lyrics like these, you can blame anyone. So as you go through the track list of the album, you'll come across songs such as Sentiment, Sentiment as a song is serene, meditative, ambient, beautiful and simple. Angelica is one of the standout songs in the album. It's balladic and triumphantly, mechanically melody that is catchy, but it's also sad sounding. A song like The Beloved was psychedelic and sentimental. Focusing on The Beloved, especially the lyrics, lyrics go along the lines of: everything that I've ever felt has gone. At last my spirit grieves. I see no point in going on, so goodbye, it's time for me to leave. So before we get into Eternity Part 1, what I'll say about Eternity Part 1 is that it's a rowdy song. The lyrics of that song go along the lines of: I've been in the tears, hope has died in me, but now I'm here, I don't wish to leave. Trapped in time, a miracle of hope and change, a swirling mass, no mercy now. If the truth hurts, so prepare for pain. Do you think we're forever? The unseen, the eternal revolve understanding. The persevering, the dying escape, forever tempting fate, take me back. A flood of tears bonding my soul with my mind, a dream of love, reality closing in behind, as I close my eyes and the vision dies, as I bid my last farewell to mankind. The song Radiance was tranquil and also balladic, and Far Away as a song insists on pointing out that the past doom repertoire is still more than just a faded memory in terms of how ANATHEMA sound on this album. And the lyrics go along the lines of: been down so long, too deep the water that I tread. Sometimes I feel myself going under. Sometimes I feel I envy the dead. So take me far away. And the closest song of the album, Eternity Part 3, which even itself as a song grows into a brief up-tempo passage towards the end of the album. Now, on this album, we are treated with more experimental, spacey type progressive music which sounds somewhat influenced by Pink Floyd in a less metallic manner. In other words, don't expect a heavy guitar-driven album. This album will be better classified as dark beauty. The vocals are pretty well in some form of clean singing or spoken vocals. Much more atmospheric is this release, although in a different way from their previous style. So anyone looking for solely heavy, slower doom riffs will not find much comfort on this album. It relies more on a mixture of melodic guitars. When this album came out, there was definitely a lot of very disappointed and even angry fans. They still are, because this album is definitely the major turning point for ANATHEMA going forward. From their extreme doom roots, a sound that they perform remarkably, to this more progressive gothic fused style. Now, me personally, I dig ANATHEMA's early, more death-prone repertoire, but I was for sure beyond the shadow of a doubt that the band would be carried away by the softening tendency in the doom death metal camp, which involves Fatal Tragedy, Cemetery, Sentenced, AMORPHIS, Paradise Lost, and Catatonia. In the mid-90s, that is. So they don't have to pretend that they're the most devout doom champions anymore. Kavanagh does his best to fit his newly epitized, not very climactic approach, and he delivers most of it all the time. This album definitely left me speechless and empowered, and it not only tied as one of it always stands up there in terms of one of my favourite all-time metal albums, but the album never gets old whenever I listen to it from start to finish. Eternity is definitely a hidden gem of the gothic metal and often overlooked as a doom metal album. Eternity was the album for which Anathema found their true form, and it added more keyboards, it was more melancholic, and from front to back, Vincent Cavanagh found its original sound as a vocalist. It has more atmosphere and depression that also seemed empowering to listen to. The music for Eternity is as martial as mentioned before, and it has a lot of atmosphere that is also depressing but very memorable to listen to. The combination of the sad acoustic clean guitars and the heavy metal guitars and powerful keyboards are phenomenal in every song. Another great highlight on the album is Duncan Patterson's use of the chorus bass guitar, and the use of the chorus guitar just by how it resonates really well with the depressing gothic metal such as this. The use of the chorus is also commonly heard in the electric guitars as well. It just sounds very dark and crisp, and throughout both the chorus and guitar, the bass guitar has a great unison with the use of distortion guitar. The guitar itself is very depressing just by listening to Suicide Bell and Radiance. Another fantastic highlight in Eternity is the use of synthesizers and keyboards. From its piano parts which sound beautiful by the way, the gothic sounding organ in Far Away to the atmospheric landscapes of the sound effects heard in songs like Hello to Eternity Part 2 and Radiance. The keyboards was everything in Eternity and gave Anathema more depth, depression and darkness. While keyboards have been heard in Anathema's previous music, Eternity was the album where it really excels. Eternity practically excels everywhere in its musical direction when looking for a gothic metal perspective. It was all done near perfect, and it really shows a lot of power and art into everything musically. Vincent Cavanagh as a singer of the extreme metal vocalist in the previous album is also a fantastic highlight for Eternity. Cavanagh really shows his melodic side in the entirety of this album. It also shows the most powerful singing. Where Anathema covered the Roy Harper song Hope, Vincent sings high for this song, especially for his tenor range. He even sings in higher in Suicide Bell, where it's showed a lot of pain and emotion to the climax of the song. Vincent's most dirtiest singing are well eschewed as well from listening to Eternity Part 1 and Eternity Part 3. This album was definitely where Vincent truly found his voice, and he continued to use this voice throughout the majority of the future albums to come. Some of the lyrics are also unique in the gothic perspective, from lines like Wildflower, Starlight Heaven, A Vestal Child Unveiled by Temptation, and I Dance with the Shadows in Tranquil Chaos, I Lie Naked in the Rain. These lyrics are very dark and original. It gives the album a lot of sensitivity and also gives Vincent Cavanagh singing much more passion and depth. Even in the album's most instrumental soundings have some great lines that give the songs much more atmosphere in songs like Sentinel and Eternity Part 2. From front to back, I can easily remember the lyrics of Eternity because of how deep the lyrics sound and how sensitive it manages to come out combined with the music. Eternity is an album that can never ever be ignored. It remains hidden from gothic metal and inspired other bands to create some depressing atmospheric metal along with the silent Enigma. If Typo Negative was the band that defined gothic metal, Anathema was the band that turned the genre to deeper, more powerful avenues with this album. Eternity is also lyrically clever and depressing. Moments of pure doom are few and far in between on this album, though that is not to say that it is not an overall strong and worthy addition to Anathema's important influence on heavy music. Anathema play a sort of mid-tempo shoegaze style here with heavier guitars and drums. For fans of depressing music, heavy metal or not, it's hard to argue with the sheer motive and impressive power of Eternity. One could argue that there's still a doom influence on this record. This departure release that so many bands have, it's the one where the style changes or the vocals change or the song writing changes, etc. Musically, one could argue that this is a logical progression from Silent Enigma. The album is essential to any fan or more melodic yet very dark side of metal. In closing, Eternity is one of the greatest underrated gothic metal albums of all time.